What is up, guys? And in today's lens shootout, we're looking at these two very popular prime lenses, the Canon 85mm f1.4L versus the Sigma 85mm f1.4 Art. And I'm going to start right now. Now, just before I start this lens shootout, I just want to say I've reviewed both of these lenses independently in my in-depth review series. So if you're interested in the Canon, go ahead and watch this video here, or you're more interested in the Sigma, go ahead and watch this video here. But this is a lens shootout to work out what one is deserving for a spot in your camera bag. So let's start that with build quality. Okay, so kick it all off, let's look at the overall build quality and the design of the lenses. Now I must say, I really do like Canon L series lenses. I think they're really good when it comes to build quality. They come with all the features you'd expect. Focus window, you've got the focus buttons on the side, you've got a really nice and smooth focus ring, and it also comes with weather sealing. But what's great about the Sigma lens is it comes with all of that with the big added bonus of a full metal construction as well. I find Canon lenses are quite plasticky, but the Sigma Art Series lenses is built like a brick. Now this lens is a little bit different. You have got a larger focus ring and the overall design of the lens is larger, but you've got all of the features on both of these lenses. So out of the two, I must say, I love the build quality of Art Series lenses. So that's what I'm going to be giving a check mark in this round. So now moving on to the all important image sharpness. How sharp are these two lenses and which one is sharper? So let's go and have a look at a few sample images. So kick it all off, we're going to go ahead and zoom into the center of these photos. As you can see, the left is Canon and the right is Sigma. As you can see, wide open at f1.4, I must say the Canon is a little bit sharper than the Sigma. And if we go and have a look in the corners, I would say the same deal. I would say the actual Canon lens is slightly sharper than the Sigma. Moving down to f2, again, back into the center again, you can see that the overall sharpness is very, very similar. I would say the Canon is ever so slightly sharper, but not by much, maybe 1 to 2% sharper. Then let's go to the corners and it's pretty much the same story. The Canon lens just edges out in sharpness just ever so slightly. Then let's go ahead and jump to 5.6, which is more of a mid-range for both of these lenses. Again, the sharpness is very, very similar. In fact, too close to call on this one. And we go and have a look at the corners. Again, I would say the Canon is just ever so slightly sharper, 1 to 5% sharper, that is all. And then let's go ahead and move to f8, which both of these lenses seem to perform best at. As you can see, very, very similar, very difficult to tell, but I would say the Canon lens is slightly sharper with a little bit more contrast. Then let's go to the corners. Again, very similar story. So overall, I must say both of these lenses performed incredibly well when it comes to image sharpness, but out of the two, which one is best? Gotta say the Canon in this round. Okay, so moving on to distortion and vignetting. So out of these two images, which one is best? Well, at the moment, I would say the Canon lens has a little bit more vignetting than the Sigma. I would also say it displays a little bit more pincushion distortion, wide open at f1.4 than the Sigma lens here. You can see there is an ever so slight amount. Barely noticeable, but you can see it on this graph. Now, if we go ahead and step down to f2, they both have roughly the same amount of vignetting, although I would say the Sigma has got a pinch a little bit less, but not by much. And then if we go ahead and step down to f2.8, we completely remove vignetting entirely with both the Canon and the Sigma lens. But straight out of the gate, I must say the Sigma lens did perform a little bit better when it comes to distortion and vignetting. Slightly less vignetting, wide open at f1.4. So overall, the Sigma lens wins this round. Now moving on to lens flaring. Now I must say both of these lenses do suffer from flaring, but I would say if you have a look at the video here, the Sigma lens offers less flaring. It seems to suppress the flaring, especially in the center. It offers a lot more contrast, especially near bright lights. Now, something to always bear in mind, these lenses both come with lens hoods. The Canon lens hood is a little bit smaller and the actual Sigma lens is a little bit larger. But overall, I would say straight out of the gate with no lens hood on, the Sigma lens is better performing when it comes to flare reduction. So that's what's going to be winning this round. Okay, so moving on to chromatic aberration and color fringing. Now we're going to have a look at a very close-up image blown up at 600%. So do bear that in mind. These two lenses are really good when reducing the amount of chromatic aberration, but both of these lenses do suffer from it, but in different degrees. If we have a look at the Canon lens on the left-hand side, you can see it suffers from more purple fringing, where if we look over on the actual Sigma lens, it suffers more from green fringing. Now out of the two, I would say the Canon lens is slightly worse, but it's a differencing of degrees in different colors. So do bear that in mind that these lenses both suffer from chromatic aberration, but I would actually say the Canon lens is slightly worse in that regard. So the Sigma lens wins out in this round. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the overall size of these lenses. And blimey, the Sigma lens is massive with a gigantic 86mm filter thread versus the 77mm filter thread that the Canon lens offers. And as you can see by this chart here, the Sigma lens absolutely monsters over the Canon lens. So if size is an issue and you want the smallest lens out of these two, even though they've got the same aperture, the Canon lens is a lot smaller than the Sigma lens. But if it's not majorly important, both of these lenses have the same aperture, so it doesn't really matter. But size is an issue for me, so that's why the Canon lens is winning this round. Now talking about size, let's move on to the weight of these lenses. Now because of the Canon lens is made more premium plastic than the full metal construction of the Sigma, it is a lot lighter, coming in at just 950 grams, where the Sigma lens is a lot heavier, coming in at over a kilo, at 1,210 grams. So if you're after a smaller, lighter weight lens, then I'd highly recommend the Canon lens, because the Sigma lens is massive, especially when you compare it to the same lens here with the same aperture. I can't believe how much larger the Sigma lens is over the Canon, when in regards, they've got the same aperture. And in fact, this lens here comes with image stabilisation, so it is a big factor for me. And that's why the Canon lens wins this round. Okay, so moving on to the focus motor of both of these lenses. Now, both of them have autofocus, which is great, but they do have them to differencing degrees. The Canon lens has the ultrasonic focus motor, and I must say, if you've ever used a Canon L series lens before, it has superb autofocus. Really quick, really quiet, and I must say very precise. Now the Sigma lens here uses a HSM or hypersonic focus motor. Now I've used a variety of Sigma lenses before and they've all had very good autofocus. But I must say this lens here didn't have as good autofocus as I was expecting. If you go ahead and watch my in-depth review, I actually work out that it misses around 10 to 15% of the time, which isn't very good, especially in low light. Now it did perform better on mirrorless cameras, but I was comparing both of these cameras here to my Canon 6D Mark II, a DSLR. So out of the two, I must say the Canon lens did have a lot better autofocus. It was a lot more precise, but it was also a lot quicker. So overall, the Canon lens wins this round. Now quickly moving on to image stabilisation, and to be honest, this is a cut and dry case. The Canon lens has image stabilisation and the Sigma lens does not. So if you're more of a hybrid shooter and you're wanting to use it for video and photography, the Sigma lens here is not the one you want to buy. Also, if you're more interested in doing low light photography, maybe with a lower shutter speeds, the Canon lens here is going to way outperform the sharpness of the Sigma lens just because of the aid of that image stabilisation, up to 4 stops on DSLR cameras. So highly recommend the Canon lens if you're a hybrid shooter or more interested in shooting in lower lit conditions. And that's what's going to be winning in this round. And last but most importantly is price. How well are these lenses priced versus each other? Well, as you can expect, the Canon lens is a lot more expensive, but let's start off with the Sigma lens first. The Sigma 85mm f1.4 comes in at £929. Now that is actually fairly reasonably priced for an 85mm prime lens. Most of the time they are the more expensive prime lens on the market. Far more expensive than a 50mm and far more expensive than a 35mm. In fact, this is one of the more expensive Sigma Art Series lenses on the market today, but the Canon lens is far more expensive, coming in at a whopping £1,489. So as you can see, there is a large disparity in price versus the Sigma versus the Canon, although the Canon does have a few better options, for instance, image stabilisation. So if that's important to you, you pretty much have got to rule that Sigma out completely. But if value for money is really important, then definitely the Sigma wins this round, coming in at under £1,000. So let's go and have a look at final results. And as you can see, the Canon is 5 and the Sigma is 5. So it is a draw, but Which one do I recommend? Well, to be honest, I've used both of these lenses in a professional setting, and out of the two, I'd recommend the Canon lens. Reason is, I love that image stabilization that it offers. Although it is more expensive, it is not that much more realistically than the Sigma lens here when you take into consideration the image stabilization. I love this lens for that, for video and for photography, because again, I do both. Again, if you're just more of a photographer and you're not doing video, then maybe the Sigma lens might find its way into your camera bag. But as a professional photographer and also videographer as well, I recommend the Canon 85mm f1.4L.